First contact gone wrong. The Volari High Commander Zextal clicked his mandibles in disgust as he studied the approaching human vessel through the bridge's quantum viewport. Such an ungainly thing. All sharp angles and exposed structural supports, nothing like the elegant bioorganic curves of proper Volari engineering. Their weapon systems appeared to be little more than primitive kinetic accelerators and chemical propellants, hardly worth noting in their battle computers. "High Commander, they're hailing us," reported his communications officer, 3rd Scale Mirthva. "Let us hear what these primitives have to say." Zextal waved a limb dismissively. The human that appeared on the command screen was unremarkable. A female with dark skin and close-cropped hair wearing what appeared to be a simple cloth uniform. No ceremonial armor, no display of martial prowess. How disappointing. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth diplomatic vessel Olive Branch. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations with your species." Zextal's translator rendered her words in proper Volari, but he could hear the primitive simplicity of their language underneath. These humans didn't even have proper honorifics or status markers in their speech patterns. "I am High Commander Zextal of the Volari Dominion. Your presence in this sector is unwelcome. You will surrender your vessel for inspection or be destroyed." He watched with satisfaction as the human's expression tightened slightly. Good, they understood their position. "High Commander, we are on a peaceful mission. We have no hostile intent and request." "Enough." Zextal slashed the air with his primary fighting claw. "Your primitive vessel offends me. Your weapons are toys. Your very presence here is an insult to the Dominion. You have 10 units to surrender or face annihilation." The human captain's expression changed then, in a way Zextal's synapsychology training couldn't quite interpret. Her voice remained level, but there was something new in it, something that made his dorsal spines twitch involuntarily. "High Commander, I strongly advise against hostile action. We may appear primitive to you, but I assure you—" "Open fire," Zextal ordered. "Show these primitives the might of proper Volari weaponry." The quantum lance batteries of his dreadnought lit up, sending searing beams of concentrated energy toward the human vessel. To his surprise, the ungainly ship rolled with surprising agility, taking only glancing hits to its outer hull. "Return fire." Captain Chen's voice crackled through the still-open channel. "Let's show them what primitive looks like." What happened next would be debated in Volari military academies for generations. The human ship's primitive kinetic weapons opened up, sending what appeared to be simple metal projectiles toward the dreadnought. Zextal actually laughed, until those projectiles split open mid-flight, releasing clouds of what his sensors identified as simple metal beads. Simple metal beads that, when accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, tore through his ship's energy shields like they weren't even there. "Impossible," he roared as damage reports flooded in. "Their weapons are nothing but rocks in tubes." Captain Chen's voice was cold now. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective, High Commander. Those primitive weapons just turned your forward shields into Swiss cheese. Would you like to continue this demonstration?" Zextal's bridge crew looked to him in shock as warning klaxons blared. Somehow, these humans had taken their most basic principles of physics and turned them into weapons that could threaten even a Volari dreadnought. "Fall back," he ordered, his pride warring with his tactical sense. "All ships, emergency translation to hyperspace." As his fleet retreated, Zextal couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just made a terrible mistake. These humans weren't primitive at all. They were something far more dangerous. They were innovators who could turn anything into a weapon. The last thing he heard before the communication cut off was Captain Chen's voice. "Next time, High Commander, try diplomacy first. It's cheaper than replacing those shield generators." The Volari Dominion had just learned their first lesson about humanity. Never mistake simplicity for weakness. Unfortunately for both species, it wouldn't be their last lesson, or their hardest. Improvised warfare. Mining foreman Jack Torres had never expected to be a wartime commander. Yet here he stood in the control room of Outpost Delta, watching as 3 Volare assault carriers descended through Titan's orange atmosphere toward his mining facility. Status report. He called out to his crew, 50 miners who'd just become impromptu soldiers. Mining lasers aligned to defensive positions, Maria Rodriguez reported from her station. But they're meant for cutting rock, not ships. Don't know how effective they'll be. The pressure vessels are rigged like you asked, Chen Wei added, his hands flying over his control panel. Though I still think this is insane. Torres managed a grim smile. Insane is what we do best. Everyone clear on the plan. His crew nodded. They'd spent the last 6 hours turning their mining facility into a fortress, using every trick and tool at their disposal. The Volare were about to learn why you don't corner human engineers. The alien ships landed in a triangle formation around the facility, their bioorganic hulls pulsing with an eerie purple light. Armored troops began pouring out, at least 100 of them. Let them get closer, Torres ordered as his people tensed. Wait for it. The Volare advanced confidently, their energy weapons at the ready. Their commander's voice boomed through external speakers in translated English. Primitive humans, your facility is now property of the Volare Dominion. Surrender and you may be allowed to serve as labor units. Torres keyed his own external comm. This is a methane mining facility on Titan. You might want to check your atmospheric sensors. The Volare commander's response was predictably arrogant. Your primitive facilities are of no concern to us. This is your final warning. Have it your way. Light 'em up. The mining lasers, normally used for cutting through Titan's ice crust, swiveled and fired. They weren't designed as weapons, but when you focus enough energy to cut through solid ice, flesh and armor aren't much of a challenge. The first row of Volare troops went down, their advanced armor proving surprisingly vulnerable to industrial cutting tools. But that was just the distraction. Release the pressure vessels, Torres ordered. Across the facility, carefully positioned pressure vessels used for storing liquid methane burst open. In Titan's atmosphere and low gravity, the result was spectacular. Vast clouds of supercooled methane enveloped the Volare troops. Their energy weapons sparked uselessly in the cold, and their bioorganic armor began to crack and freeze. Now the fun part, Torres grinned. Hit the ignition. The facility's emergency flares, designed to burn off excess methane, ignited. The methane clouds erupted into massive fireballs, engulfing the Volare forces in precisely calculated infernos. By the Dominion, the Volare commander's voice cracked with disbelief. They're using their mining equipment as weapons. Welcome to humanity's crash course in improvised warfare, Torres responded. Today's lesson, basic thermodynamics and why you should have paid attention in chemistry class. The remaining Volare troops retreated in chaos, their sophisticated weapons and armor proving worse than useless against the brutal simplicity of human industrial ingenuity. Their ships lifted off, leaving behind scored and frozen wreckage. As the fires died down, Chen Wei looked at Torres with newfound respect. How did you know that would work? Torres shrugged. Used to be a firefighter before I became a miner. You learn real quick how dangerous industrial accidents can be. Figured if it can go wrong by accident, we could make it go wrong on purpose. Sir, Rodriguez called out, we're getting communications from Earth Command. They're sending reinforcements, but we got more company coming. Torres finished, watching new contacts appear on the long-range sensors. Well, good thing we've got plenty more tricks up our sleeves. Start depressurizing the methane storage tanks in Section C. And someone get me the maintenance manual for those plasma drills. I've got an idea. As his crew scrambled to prepare for round 2, Torres couldn't help but smile. The Volare had come expecting to find helpless miners with primitive tools. Instead, they'd found humans doing what humans do best, turning absolutely anything into a weapon when backed into a corner. The real question wasn't whether they could hold out until reinforcements arrived. The real question was how many more industrial accidents They could arrange for their uninvited guests. The kitchen counterattack. Dr. Maya Patil never thought her doctorate in food science would be relevant to warfare. Yet here she was in the galley of Research Station Archimedes, mixing chemicals that had no business being anywhere near each other. "Pass me that vinegar," she called to Roberto, the station's head chef. "And for heaven's sake, keep that yeast culture away from the heat." The space station's corridors echoed with the sound of Volari cutting tools trying to breach the emergency bulkheads. After their surprise attack 3 hours ago, the station's 100 civilian researchers and support staff had been pushed back to the hydroponics and food preparation sections. There, through Bulkhead 7, came the call over the station's comm system. "Maybe 20 minutes until they reach us." Maya looked at her makeshift chemistry set, a collection of kitchen equipment and food supplies arranged across the galley's steel counters. "That should be enough time. How's that pressure cooker coming along, Roberto?" The chef patted the modified cooking equipment with grim satisfaction. "Ready to go. Though I still can't believe we're doing this." "Trust the science." Maya grinned, measuring precise amounts of common cooking ingredients into containers. "Everything in a kitchen is basically just chemistry waiting to happen. Sometimes explosive chemistry." The station's security officer, James Chen, rushed in. "They've taken the main lab levels. All our actual weapons are either out of ammo or captured. Please tell me you've got something we can use." Maya held up a spray bottle filled with a clear liquid. "You know how capsaicin is basically pepper spray. Well, I just concentrated it about 100 times using equipment from the molecular gastronomy lab. 1 spritz of this, and their environmental suits won't matter. The chemical will eat right through their filters." "And this," Roberto added, pointing to his modified pressure cooker, "is now basically a steam bomb. The blast won't kill them, but in these enclosed corridors, the temperature and pressure will play havoc with their bioorganic armor." Chen looked skeptical. "We're fighting high-tech alien invaders with cooking equipment." "No," Maya corrected, carefully filling more spray bottles. "We're fighting them with applied chemistry, physics, and biology. The kitchen equipment is just our delivery system." She handed out their improvised weapons to the gathered station crew. Spray bottles of concentrated capsaicin, pressure cooker bombs, and several other surprises she'd cooked up. "The fermentation lab provided some interesting options too," she explained. "You'd be amazed what some bacteria can do to bioorganic materials. And don't even get me started on what I managed to create using cleaning supplies and food preservatives." A massive bang echoed through the station. The Volari were getting closer. "Remember," Maya instructed, "they're expecting helpless civilian researchers. What they're getting is a crash course in applied food science. Hit them with the capsaicin first. That'll disorient them. Then the pressure cookers go off. After that," she held up a container of seemingly innocent white powder, "we show them what happens when you militarize baking chemistry." "This is insane," Chen muttered, but he was grinning. "Absolutely insane." "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense," Roberto quipped. "And sometimes the best defense is knowing exactly how to turn everyday chemicals into weapons." The station shook as the Volari breached another bulkhead. Maya double-checked her makeshift chemical weapons, remembering all those years in the lab, all those careful experiments with food preservation and molecular gastronomy. Who knew she'd end up using that knowledge like this? "They're about to learn why you don't mess with human scientists," she declared, "even if we're just food scientists." The final bulkhead began to glow red as Volari cutting tools worked on it. Maya's team took their positions, armed with nothing but kitchen equipment and the accumulated knowledge of human food science. The Volari were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous laboratory on a space station isn't the one labeled danger, it's the one labeled kitchen. And as the bulkhead finally gave way, Maya couldn't help but smile. After all, she'd always wanted to test some of her more extreme theories about molecular gastronomy. She just never expected her test subjects to be alien invaders. Necessity's warriors. Colonel Diana Martinez stood in the reeked cargo bay of the captured Volare supply ship, surrounded by crates of alien technology. Her unit of Space Force Marines had been cut off from Earth's supply lines for 3 weeks, but that was about to become the Volare's problem. Status report, she called out to her engineering team. Lieutenant Park looked up from where he was dissecting a Volare energy rifle. You're going to love this, Colonel. Their weapons are actually simpler than ours in some ways. They rely on quantum field manipulation, but the underlying principles. He grinned. Let's just say we can work with this. How long until we can repurpose their tech? That's the beautiful part. Park held up what looked like a tangle of bioorganic circuitry. They designed everything to be plug-and-play for their ships and systems. They never expected anyone else to figure out how to use it. But once you understand the basic interface protocols, Martinez nodded. They got overconfident. Again, she turned to her communications officer. How's our little surprise coming along? Sergeant Santos was practically bouncing with excitement. Better than we hoped, ma'am. Their quantum communication network. It's like they never considered someone might hack it. We can't crack their encryption yet, but we don't need to. We can still use their network as a weapon. The plan was audacious, maybe even crazy. But then, that was humanity's specialty. The Volare had superior technology, yes. But they used it in predictable, doctrine-bound ways. They never imagined someone might take their elegant quantum systems and use them, creatively. Show me, Martins ordered. Santos pulled up a holographic display. See these nodes? Each one is a Volare ship or base. They're all connected through quantum entanglement. Super secure, impossible to intercept, but also impossible to shut off without physically destroying the quantum pairs. Which means we can flood their entire network with garbage data. Their ships won't be able to distinguish real communications from our noise. And here's the best part. We can use their own emergency protocols against them. Martinez smiled. It was beautiful in its simplicity. The Volare relied so heavily on their quantum network that they'd never developed backup communications. Why would they? The network was supposed to be unhackable. Lieutenant Park, what about those energy rifles? Park held up a modified weapon. Already figured out how to overload them, ma'am. When they try to fire, the quantum field will collapse spectacularly. Won't harm our troops, but it'll play hell with their bioorganic armor. And the ship's systems. Even better, Park pointed to the engine room. Their quantum drive uses the same basic principles as their weapons. Once we understand one system, we can hack them all. Martinez finished. She activated her command channel. All units, prepare for Operation Trojan Horse. Remember, we're not just stealing their technology. We're turning it against them in ways they never imagined possible. The next few hours were a blur of activity as her troops modified captured Volare equipment. They weren't just adapting to use alien tech, they were deliberately breaking it in creative ways, finding vulnerabilities the Volare had never considered because they always used their technology exactly as designed. Multiple contacts. Santos called out suddenly. Volare battle fleet incoming. They must have detected our presence. Martinez checked the tactical display. 5 Volare dreadnoughts, each carrying thousands of troops. Under normal circumstances, her small force would be hopelessly outmatched. But these weren't normal circumstances. Let them come, she ordered. Initiate quantum network overflow. Deploy the modified rifles. And someone wake up Dr. Chen. I want to see if we can use their own shields to create a feedback loop. As her troops scrambled to their positions, Martinez reflected on humanity's greatest strength. It wasn't their technology, or even their ability to adapt alien tech. It was their willingness to break things in creative ways, to look at a quantum communication network and think, what if we turned this into a weapon? The Volare fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charge. They were about to learn that giving humans access to advanced technology wasn't a mistake because humans couldn't understand it. It was a mistake because humans understood it all too well, and were perfectly willing to use it in ways its creators never imagined. The final lesson. High Commander Zextal stood before the Volari High Council, his scales dulled with fatigue. The tactical displays behind him told a story that none of the council members wanted to believe. The humans, he began, his voice heavy, have turned every single piece of our technology against us. Mining lasers become anti-armor weapons. Kitchen chemicals become biochemical agents. Our own quantum network, he paused, mandibles clicking in distress, has become their greatest weapon against us. The council chamber erupted in angry clicks and hisses. Supreme Counselor Vexhar raised a primary claw for silence. Explain, she demanded, how these primitives have accomplished this. That, a new voice rang out, is precisely why you're losing this war. The council turned as one to see Captain Sarah Chen stride into the chamber, flanked by both human and Volari guards, the same human who had first encountered Zextal's fleet months ago. Your mistake, Chen continued, was thinking that primitive means stupid. That simple means ineffective. You never understood humanity's greatest weapon. And what weapon is that? Vexhar challenged. Creativity. Chen activated a holoprojector. Let me show you what happened at the Battle of Europid yesterday. The display showed a Volari dreadnought approaching a seemingly defenseless human mining facility. But instead of surrendering, the facility vented its entire supply of liquid oxygen into space, directly into the dreadnought's path. The supercooled liquid froze instantly in the vacuum, creating a cloud of microscopic ice crystals. Your bioorganic hulls, Chen explained, are self-repairing and nearly indestructible against conventional weapons, but they can't handle extreme temperature differentials very well. When your ship hit that oxygen cloud at relativistic speeds, the council watched in horror as the dreadnought's hull literally shattered. That was designed by a maintenance worker who used to be a coffee barista, Chen added. She understood how sudden temperature changes affect different materials. Simple physics, creative application. She changed the display to show the quantum network attack that Colonel Martinez had orchestrated. And here's what happens when you give humans access to technology we've never seen before. We don't just learn to use it. We learn to misuse it in ways you never imagined possible. The images kept coming. Mining equipment turned into weapons, kitchen chemistry deployed as defensive systems, and captured Volari technology repurposed in increasingly creative ways. But here's the real lesson. Chen's voice softened. None of this was necessary. We tried to talk first. We offered peace, trade, cultural exchange. You chose war because you thought we were primitive. Because our weapons were simple, our ships inelegant, our technology crude. She gestured to Zextal. Your High Commander learned first. Everything can be a weapon in human hands, not because we're inherently violent, but because we're inherently creative. We see possibilities where you see fixed purposes. Supreme Counselor Vexhar studied Chen for a long moment. And what do you propose now, human? The same thing we proposed at first. Peace, trade, exchange of ideas. Chen smiled. Because if you think we're dangerous as enemies, wait until you see what we can do as allies. Imagine combining your quantum technology with human creativity. Imagine what we could build together instead of finding new ways to break each other's toys. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Zextal who finally spoke. Supreme Counselor, I support the human proposal. I have seen their ingenuity firsthand. Better to have it working for us than against us. One by one, the council members clicked their agreement. Even they could see the wisdom now. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ability to turn anything into a weapon. It was their ability to turn anything into anything they needed it to be. As the peace treaty was drawn up, Chen approached Zextal privately. You know, that first battle between us could have gone very differently if you just talked to us. A lesson learned at great cost, Zextal admitted. Though I must ask, what other weapons did you have ready that day? Chen grinned. Would you believe our ship's coffee maker could have been converted into a plasma injector with about 5 minutes' work? Our engineer used to fix espresso machines in college, said the principles were surprisingly similar. Zextel's mandibles clicked in what humans would learn was Volare laughter. Perhaps that is what truly makes humans dangerous. Not that you can turn anything into a weapon, but that you can see the hidden potential in everything. Exactly, Chen agreed. Now want to see what happens when we start turning weapons into other things. Our scientists have some fascinating ideas about repurposing quantum field generators for medical technology. And so began a new chapter in human-Volare relations, built on a simple truth. The most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or weapons. It's the human ability to look at anything and ask, what else could this become? The Volare had learned their final lesson about humanity. And this time, everyone survived the teaching moment.